First up on the show, some news from the EV space. Well, we begin with BluSmart Mobility, which is a leading EV ride-hailing and charging provider platform that's just raised $42 million in a recent funding round. And that too, at the time when the startup ecosystem is facing a severe funding crunch. So BluSmart, interestingly, is the third only prominent player in Delhi-NCR and Bengaluru, perhaps, post Uber and Ola, which is really coming up as a challenger to the other two. And joining us now to talk more about the business, the fundraise, and where will it be deployed is Anmol Jaggi, who's the co-founder and CEO of BluSmart Mobility. All right, I'm told that Anmol has just joined us. Anmol, I know that you're in transit right now. You're flying out of the country, so I really appreciate you joining us at such a short notice. We'll talk about the EV ecosystem and ride-hailing space a little later, but first, take us through the fundraise. In total, how much have you raised? And this last $42 million is a mix of debt and equity, which investors participated in. How are you going to utilize these funds?
We are very thankful to our investors to have backed us up. This round is the last leg of our Series A round. We have cumulatively raised about close to $120 million till date, which is both comprising of debt and equity. Apart from this, we have also raised about $150 million in asset finance, which is car finance, to take on these thousands of cars onto the BluSmart platform. This round has been primarily led by the founders, and founders put in about 50% of the money raised in this round ourselves. So it's myself, my co-founder, and the leadership team at BluSmart. And in terms of fund utilization, like always, we have three tiers of three avenues where funds get deployed. Number one, acquiring more cars. Number two, building more charging infrastructure. And number three, to fund the small amount of burn that we have.
Right. So charging infrastructure obviously is key as far as the EV ecosystem is concerned. And the government has mega plans of, converting 30% of the transport fleet into EVs by 2030. We'll talk a little bit about that a little later. But currently you have a fleet size of 3,500 plus. Which other cities do you plan to expand in? And also tell us about the fleet size expansion plans.
So we are currently present in Delhi and Bangalore. We have about 3,100 cars in Delhi NCR and about 400 cars in Bangalore. In the next 60 days, we will cross the 5,000 car mark. And before the end of the year, we will cross the 10,000 car mark. We only plan to deploy the additional 6,500 cars which are coming in the cities of Delhi and Bangalore only. Delhi and Bangalore totally have a potential of more than 1 lakh cars. So 1 lakh cars are required there as a cab service. And I think 10,000 is a very small number. So we would still be doubling, tripling, quadrupling our fleet just in the Delhi and Bangalore markets.
That seems like a very, very ambitious plan. But your fundraise comes in at a time when startups are laying off. Over 9,000 employees have been laid off. There's a funding crunch, 75% dip in funding in this first quarter of this year. Now, as a startup founder who recently started off only, 2019 is, not too back in the day, shortly after COVID hit, which also affected businesses. So props for securing that funding. But my question to you really is, how are VCs and PEs seeing this time, and what will work for a startup founder during these times if he has to go for a fundraise?
I think, ma'am, the business needs to be fundamentally very sound. I think the gone days of crazy valuations are out there, is no more there. At BluSmart, we have been growing exponentially. So in the last 3 quarters, we have grown 3 times. We are seeing that the burn rates are extremely low. I think any incoming investor is going to look at, of course, your growth rates, but more importantly than growth rates, the burn that you are doing. What is the cost of customer acquisition? What is the cost? What is the losses that you are making? And at BluSmart, we are very, very close to breaking even now. So I think that's what is attracted a lot of investor interest towards our side.
Right. So we'll have to ask you to hang on for a little while because Britannia results are out. Britannia has in fact posted higher than expected net profits year on year, while the revenues have of course touched over 4,000 crores. And joining us now is my colleague Winnie, who's giving us a lowdown on all of these numbers.
I actually, in terms of such yes, bit of becoming this means what
Winnie, I'll come to you in a little later. There's an audio glitch. Our producers are trying to fix that. But let me get back to Anmol Jaggi of BluSmart Mobility. Sir, thank you very much for hanging on. Now, we were actually talking about fundraise happening at a time when there is a slowdown of sorts. There's a funding crunch in the ecosystem. But how resilient are you in the midst of a slowdown? You have just raised funds, but considering that there are serious cost burns also in the business, how resilient are you?
So I think, ma'am, at BluSmart, our burns are extremely low. And from a BluSmart perspective, we have today about close to, with the new fundraise, we have close to about 400 crores plus in our bank account. And our burn rate is sub 5 crores a month. So we have absolutely very small burn rates which are there. So based on what money we have in the bank, we have easily enough money for the next 80 odd months. There is not we are actually this, most of the money is going to get used to for capex into cars, capex into charging infrastructure, and very little of this is going towards burn money. Hence, I think from a BluSmart perspective, not this fundraise puts us absolutely into the dock for very high performance and very high growth.
Very high performance and very high growth, you say. But how critically are you looking at fares and building partnerships as far as the EV ecosystem is concerned with other auto brands?
So I think we have a very good partnership with Tata Motors. We have also started in a small way with MG also. We have inducted about 50 to 70 MG ZS EVs into our fleet. We have a good partnership which is forming with BYD. All across the value chain, we are extremely excited about the new launches which are happening in the market. So in the EV eco space, so I think with all possible OEMs, given the large size of procurement that BluSmart does of electric vehicles, I think we are partners with almost everyone in the market, and we are extremely happy that we are able to deploy more and more EVs onto Indian roads.
All right. So you seem to be really building on the ride cancellation piece, and considering that you claim that there are no cancellations on your platform, there's no surge pricing either, something that really ails the other ride-hailing apps, actually Ola and Uber. So how else do you plan to beat competition, especially considering that Ola and Uber are established players and they're also pushing for electrification? So in this sort of a market, where do you place yourself in the next few years?
I think the customer needs very simple things. Customer just needs clean cars, on-time cars, no cancellation and no surge price. I think what at BluSmart we have mastered is these four things: no cancellation, no surge, clean cars, great driver partners. And I don't think the Indian consumer is looking forward to anything else apart from this. So from that perspective, we are very sorted. The product that we have has great acceptance. Today, we have about 600,000 customers who come to the app on a monthly basis. So these are very large numbers of people who have already started to use us, and very large number of people who are giving us a lot of trips. I think we just need to keep on maintaining the quality standards that we have. If the car is clean, comes on time, without cancellation, without surge pricing, I think the Indian customer is delighted, and that's what we want to continue to do.
And you have a strong feedback mechanism also as far as the car quality and cancellation and surge pricing, all of these factors are concerned?
Sorry, I couldn't get the question, ma'am.
What's the feedback mechanism?
Oh yeah, so every trip is so there are multiple feedback mechanisms. So every trip, at the end of the trip is being rated. Apart from that, we run a very strong control over quality, in the sense that every car which is moving out of the charging hub is very well sanitized, is very well cleaned. We have a absolutely zero tolerance policy with the driver partners around cancellation. So if a driver partner cancels, you will we ensure that the driver partner is not there on the platform the very next day. So we have put in a lot of checks and balances to ensure that the quality of the BluSmart ecosystem, of the quality of the BluSmart app, the cab experience, the driver experience is always top notch.
This no cancellation policy really, really takes my vote. And I'm sure a lot of our viewers are also sort of happy with that sort of, a policy coming in on a ride hailing platform. But moving on, so your balance sheet actually shows that your business has only grown since, FY20 to FY 2022. What's the projection you're looking at this fiscal? If you could just share some numbers with us.
Sure. So like we mentioned, ma'am, over the last 3 quarters, we have tripled in size. Our current revenue run rate is about close to 300 crores. We expect that before the end of the year, our revenue run rate will cross the 1,000 crore mark.
1,000 crore mark. 1,000 crore mark, that's really, really ambitious. But last few questions, sir, before we let you leave. I want to talk to you about FAME subsidies, because this is in news. Everybody is talking about it. There was also sort of a lot of back and forth between EV players and, of course, the ministry as well. Where do you stand on the issue of subsidies, and for how long do you think the EV market at this point in time can move without subsidies?
In my opinion, I think that subsidies might be required for the next couple of years. In fact, in one of the public forums, we recently spoke that government should actually inform the de-rollout plan, or when the subsidies will go to zero. See, today the EV sector has 3 benefits. Our GST rate is 5%. We get a FAME subsidy, and there is maybe some state governments which offer registration free of cost. So these are the 3 subsidies that are being offered to the EV sector as of now. Of course, any sector cannot perpetually thrive on subsidies, and my opinion is that slowly and gradually these subsidies need to be removed. And I think if the government can give out a clear indicative plan which says that how in the next 2-3 years these subsidies will get weaned off, I think we as entrepreneurs will be able to better plan our business, and we will be able to better plan the finances around it. So I think every year, in my opinion, if the subsidies can come out and in the next 3 years go to zero, actually I have seen that when subsidies go to zero, the sector actually thrives more. So I'm very happy with the fact that if we can have an indicative roadmap of how the subsidies over the next 3 years are going to tend to zero, I think the sector is doing very well and can survive on its own feet.
The sector is doing very well and is surviving on its own feet. And you say that you have seen sectors thriving better when subsidy is tapered off, although eventually and gradually. But really, what makes you say that? Because there are some industry players that say that, we need subsidy to grow to meet the government's target of reaching 30% electrification by 2030. In fact, we also saw in the past few weeks when subsidy was taken away from some of these EV manufacturers, this actually led to rise in pricing of electric vehicles.
So, ma'am, I've been a clean tech entrepreneur all my life. The business before BluSmart was a solar business. In 2010, the government actually waived off the subsidy from solar projects, and you see the solar sector today becoming 10 times more larger than what it was there in 2010. So similarly, people have to live without subsidies. People have to understand that subsidies cannot be always permanent. Subsidies are only a way to kickstart the sector. The sector has got kickstarted. We are not advocating that subsidies be going to zero tomorrow. But over the next 3 years period, if any business is real about their finances, if they are real about their P&L accounts, real about their balance sheets, they have to plan for a future which is without subsidies. You cannot have a business plan which is solely dependent on subsidies. And as an entrepreneur, I would never make a business plan which is 100% dependent on subsidies. And I would urge all my fellow entrepreneurs in the EV ecosystem also not to do that.
Okay, you will urge Mr. Jaggi, all your fellow entrepreneurs not to rely completely on subsidies. So that's the big news perhaps that's coming in from an EV player. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us here on Startup Central. We appreciate you giving us time and speaking to us, especially like I said during the beginning of this chat, you're in transit. Thank you very much, and we hope to speak you very soon on this issue and a whole host of other issues in the EV ecosystem. But for now, we'll switch tracks and look at the finfluencer space. Now, financial influencers doling out advice on where your money should be parked, and that's actually got the attention of regulators who now want to regulate this space. Now, SEBI is all set to direct brokers and mutual funds to limit their use in advertising and marketing campaigns, according to reports. My colleague Kavita joins us with the latest in this sector.
The market regulator SEBI is expected to come up with guidelines where direct brokers or mutual fund distributors or traders registered with SEBI will have to limit the use of social media of influencers. We've been seeing SEBI's crackdown on social media influencers because SEBI fears the amount of misleading information that's passing on to the retail investors to which they are falling prey or becoming a victim of, and we've seen this on a rise since the pandemic. So earlier there have been guidelines where SEBI has clearly defined and stated ways of communication to be used by IRAs or even research analysts. End of last year, we had seen the definition of celebrities that can be used or should not be used by mutual fund houses in order to promote their products or for advertising or marketing purpose. Clearly, if we talk about the celebrity definition given or issued by SEBI last year to mutual fund houses and traders and distributors was that any person who has a following of more than 10 lakhs should not be used by mutual fund houses. Now, going one step ahead, SEBI is expected to come up with a directive plan, a guideline where a limited use in whatever conditions will be defined clearly to mutual fund houses, distributors, to traders or traders registered with SEBI especially, and what kind of information they are allowed to give. SEBI actually fears the kind of misleading information. The social media influencers directly don't come under SEBI's jurisdiction, but then what SEBI can actually do is legitimize the kind of association a registered entity will be having with social media influencers, and that is what SEBI is trying to work on. So very soon we might hear a guideline where the limited use of financial influencers in advertising and marketing campaign, which is done by mutual fund houses, distributors or research analysts can be issued.
Well, we'll be tracking that space very closely over the next few weeks. But for now, e-commerce firm Meesho has laid off 251 employees constituting 15% of its workforce to cut costs as part of its efforts to achieve profitability. Now, this is according to an internal mail that was sent to employees. Reasons that were cited for the layoff, that there is a macroeconomic slowdown of sorts and funding crunch in the ecosystem as well. In fact, Adit, the CEO actually is reported to have said that the company made errors in overhiring ahead of the curve. Mind you, since last year, Meesho has been on a cost-cutting strategy to turn profitable by mid-2023. The company has said that it seeks a leaner structure for improved earnings. Retrenched staff would receive a one-time severance payment. The laid-off employees will in fact receive accelerated vesting of ESOPs. So there you have, that's the big story of the day. Meesho laying off at least 250 people, and this is the third set of layoffs that is happening right now in Meesho, as Meesho seeks a leaner structure for improved earnings. The retrenched staff will receive a one-time severance payment, and the retrenched staff will also receive accelerated vesting ESOPs. Let me quote a statement by Vidit Atre. He said, "We've taken a difficult decision to part ways with 251 Meeshoites constituting 15% of the employee base as we look to work with a leaner organizational structure to achieve sustained profitability. We are committed to ensuring that all those impacted have our full support and will be provided a separation package that includes a one-time severance payment, including insurance benefits, job placement support, and accelerated vesting of ESOPs. We, of course, remain grateful for their contributions in building Meesho." And Karnataka is all set to go to polls on May 10th. Campaigning is in full swing in the state, and it looks like besides wooing masses, both Congress and BJP are wooing the startup community as well, looking at their manifestos. So what is the BJP promising? Well, it has plans to convert Karnataka into an EV hub, while the Congress too plans to expand IT sector's contribution to the state's GDP. BJP's massive 5,000 crore fund of funds will be allocated for sunrise sectors in the startup ecosystem in this space, while Congress has plans of giving a startup subsidy of 25 lakh rupees. A 30,000 crore seed fund is what the BJP is planning for agri-tech, while Congress plans to invest 1,000 crore rupees for R&D in tech and innovation parks. In fact, an EV push is being seen from both the parties. BJP plans to convert Bengaluru's transport buses into EVs. It also wants to develop an EV city on the outskirts of Bengaluru, while Congress has big plans to set up a gig workers welfare board for the welfare of gig workers in the state, as they form a major part of the startup ecosystem. So it wants to raise their concerns as well. In fact, there is also some talk around BJP actually expanding the scope of the PLI scheme in the state. So, big promises, but whoever wins, I guess it's a win-win for the startup ecosystem overall. Now, less than a week to go for the polls, BJP leader and Karnataka Chief Minister Basavaraj Bommai is in the middle of a hectic campaigning. He addressed a mega rally at T. Narasipura in Mysuru. From election and back to tech, well, top tech bosses, including the CEOs. A CEO of Microsoft, Satya Nadella, and Google, Sundar Pichai, was summoned to the White House for an emergency meeting held by the White House President, US President, Joe Biden, and Vice President Kamala Harris. The tech leaders were told that they must protect the public from the dangers of artificial intelligence. Harris said in a statement following the meeting that the new technology could pose a risk to safety, privacy, and civil rights, although it also had the potential to improve lives. She said the private sector had an ethical, moral, and legal responsibility to ensure the safety and security of their products. And now let's go across to my colleague Aishwarya Patil, who's tracking the story and has more developments to share.
It's been almost 67 years since the phrase AI or artificial intelligence was first used in a funding proposal. AI definitely has come a long way, but now we're debating about the risks and danger it poses towards humanity on the whole. Now, US President Joe Biden and the White House tweeted earlier about a meeting that happened between the US President as well as various tech giant leadership, including Satya Nadella of Microsoft, OpenAI's Sam Altman, Meta's Mark Zuckerberg, and so on and so forth. And they highlighted the importance of using AI as a responsible tool of innovation, also protecting people's safety as well as rights. They also spoke of firms need to make sure that they make AI a safe space for people. Now, AI has come a long way, and it is almost said that AI could overtake jobs, including that of a bookkeeper, accountant, automated cars as well as automated diagnosis says that it could take away taxi drivers' jobs as well as the diagnostic business as well. We're also speaking of other services, including retail services, potentially even the job of a journalist, since AI can actually copy, edit, and write a whole script on its own. Now, the other potential risks are in terms of cyberspace, as well as it being used as a medium of spreading misinformation. What's interesting is that Geoffrey Hinton, who is the man who won the Nobel Prize for Computing, and he also bagged the Turing Award in 2018 for his trailblazing work in terms of artificial intelligence building. He recently quit his job. He had almost a decade-long stint with Google just to spread awareness of the ill effects of AI and the dangers and risks AI poses towards humanity.
So Aishwarya getting us all of those details, but let me also add here that Sam Altman, who's the big boss of ChatGPT, the creator of OpenAI, who also attended that meeting, said that surprisingly all of them are on the same page and a policy to sort of regulate AI needs to come in. Now, moving on, before we wrap the show, let's take a look at the tweet of the day, and it had to be President Biden's tweet. He says, and I quote, "Artificial intelligence is one of the most powerful tools of our time, but to seize its opportunities, we must mitigate its risks." Today, I dropped by a meeting with AI leaders to touch upon the importance of innovating responsibly and protecting people's safety. Well, we are glad that this conversation is coming up and the policymakers are finally speaking about the ills. Certainly, it will change the job ecosystem in the next few years. But of course, the ills have to be spoken about. The challenges have to be spoken about right now, so something can be done about in the near future. And with that, it's a wrap on the show. That's all we could pack for you in this edition of Startup Central. Hope you liked it as much as we did putting it together for you. And if you want to have a story, if